Do you remember that time Ryan Reynolds played a comic book character? No, I mean in a bad comic book movie. No. An obscure comic book. Ugh, God damn it, no! The One Man in Black ripoff. Yeah, that one.
RIPD, which stands for Rest in Peace Department, was a comic book based around the idea of a police force for the afterlife that hunt down the monsters hiding among the living. From what I could find of it, it really didn't seem like that bad of a comic. The movie, on the other hand...
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, it's not very good. At all. It stars Ryan Reynolds and Jeff Bridges, as well as Kevin Bacon and Mary Louise Parker, and it was released in 2013. Luckily for these guys, they've all been in much better comic book movies. And in Ryan Reynolds' case, much worse movies. Ugh, gross. Somebody thought that was okay. Despite the ripped movie's less than stellar performance, however, it still managed to get adapted into a game. It's a wave-based third-person shooter where you need to take out all the deados on the field, with 5 rounds called encounters per match. It was developed by Old School Games and published by... Wait, Atlas published this mess? That Atlas? Damn, must have had a very strong marketing deal for them to agree to publish some crap like this. And for some reason, the game launched in North America 2 days before the movie had even hit theaters. It was a 2-day difference. What could they possibly gain by not having the dates coincide? In terms of story, this game barely has any at all. All it has is a single motion comic style cutscene, and it's decent, at least. The voiceover is delivered well enough, and it doesn't look too horrible.
Nick Walker was one of Boston's finest police officers. The kind of guy that doesn't flinch in a firefight. Which is unfortunate because he died.
Wait, what? No, he didn't. He got shot by his partner and fell down a few floors to snap his neck. You even addressed this yourself in your rudely named Haze Rounds buff. I've changed my mind. This game can't even get its own story right. It gives the most basic synopsis of the story it can, as if they didn't even watch the movie before writing it. Matter of fact, I think that might just be the case. It's like the kid in school who tries giving the presentation on the book in class, but he didn't even read it. Okay, so I may have been that kid in school, but at least I pulled it off decently well. Unlike this game. Let's talk about presentation for a bit. First things first, the menus. They look pretty decent actually. They look nice enough, polished, and fit the overall aesthetic the game's been trying to put forward so far. Unfortunately, that's where the good things end. The character models are, well, gross looking and very unpolished. Here you can see we have the knockoff dollar store versions of Ryan Reynolds and Jeff Bridges, and these are the better looking models in the game. Which character you pick has no bearing on how they play either, so it's all cosmetic. The enemy models are the same few bland monsters with little to no variation between them. There's the heavy styled enemies that do exactly as you'd expect, and these weird support enemies that can power up the other enemies, kinda like the medics in TF2. But other than that, all the enemies are these generic monster grunts with the same 3 or 4 character designs. In terms of locales, there's only 6 maps that are based on various areas from the movie. I mean, I think they are anyway. They're actually just big ovals with poorly textured designs of places ripped straight out of the trailer slapped over them. The only one that actually resembles the movie is the bullpen, and maybe the bank too, I guess. But that's not really saying much for it. None of the maps offer anything unique about them either. They're all just big looping paths with lower levels that cut through them. Nothing differs from map to map. There's no specific enemies or gimmicks that vary from one map to another. It's all just the same run and gun bullshit in a slightly varying location. But by far, the biggest problem with the game's presentation has to be the amount of time it takes for textures to load in. First of all, this game is download only, so there's absolutely no reason for it to take more than a second or two to load in textures. But for some nonsense reason, it can take upwards of 15 seconds to load in basic textures. I just love staring at the untextured Satan spawn of Jeff Bridges while my game loads, don't you? And this isn't a one-time thing either. This happens every time you play a match. It's inexcusable. Beautiful. Oh, there it goes. And somewhere in the middle of this mess lies the sound design. The music is okay at best, but not memorable at all. And there's only like 3 songs in the game, so expect to get sick of them or start tuning them out pretty quickly. And the actual sound effects are decent enough, nothing that sounds too out of place. But in between rounds and online matches, the characters spit out random lines pulled straight from the film, and a lot of the time they don't even make sense next to each other.
Total humiliation. I'm not gonna take this line down.
Yeah? Okay.
Now I know what you must be thinking. Graphics and sound can be forgiven if the gameplay is good, right? Well, hold on to your ass, folks, because it gets a lot worse from here.
Let's start simple. There's only one gameplay mode, the wave-based horde mode, and matches average about 25 minutes to half an hour, so expect to get pretty bored pretty goddamn quickly, especially with the worthless maps having no variation. There's 3 difficulty settings, but the only thing they seem to change is how many hits it takes to kill an enemy. They don't even seem to do more damage to you or anything, and the same numbers of enemies spawn, just take more hits to put down each time. And I hope you didn't plan on playing this game on your own, because there is an insane difficulty spike when playing single player. But of course, there's nobody playing a game like this online. I lucked out my first match and found somebody to partner with, but after that, no one. I legitimately waited 15 minutes looking for anybody to play with and had no luck. Not that I can blame people for not wanting to play this crap. I mean, I only spent $1 on this game on a flash sale one day, solely with the idea that it might be bad enough to make a video about. I wholeheartedly regret my purchase, because there is more wrong with this game than I ever could have anticipated. The controls are as standard as you'd expect. L1 aims, R1 shoots, X is the sprint button, and tapping it lets you do a quick dodge roll, square is to reload, L2 and R2 rotate your available power-ups, more on those later, triangle is to use the currently equipped power-up, left and right on the D-pad are to change between your equipped weapons, and circle is your melee attack. Up on the D-pad is supposedly for using something, but I tried and could not make it do anything. And since this is supposed to be an online game, opening the menu with start doesn't pause the game. Nevertheless, I still sat in the menu for a bit looking how to figure out the goddamn controls a bit better. Not that I had any luck though. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before you even get into a match, if you're in a custom match at least, you have to pick a character, a map, and your 2 weapons. You only start out with 3 of the available 11 weapons unlocked, and the pistol is worthless, so you shouldn't even bother trying to use it. There are the bonus weapons, like the banana and the hairdryer, that serve as references to Rip Through the Movie, but you really need a money grind to be able to get them, and they're locked at the start anyway. More often than anything, you'll just be using the shotgun and the submachine gun. On top of that, you can choose a consumable buff to help you for each match, but they're ridiculously expensive to get, and money is not gathered nearly quickly enough to use these regularly, and most of them aren't really worth using anyway. There's also a meter at the top of the screen that I assume is your progression meter, but I've made almost no progress, and I've played at least 5 rounds to completion. If there's some sort of boss encounter at the end, I am not sticking around to see it. I guess it also unlocks bits of concept art and stills from the movie too, but that doesn't make it worth it.
Up to this point, I've avoided directly addressing the gameplay, and there is a reason for that. It's atrocious. Like, really bad. And I feel like the best way for me to really explain that, or show you that, is if I go through a few of the matches I played and just show you exactly what happened, what went wrong.
But before I do that, I have one thing to say. There is no form of locking on in this game, or even snapping the targets. This makes aiming extremely difficult, and that bogs down the entire game. The first match I played also happened to be the only one where I found an online partner. When you actually play with someone, you can vote for a competitive modifier to have during the match, but the person I played with didn't seem too into voting, so I just kinda picked off the choices myself. And if nothing else, this shows just how obviously the game was meant to be co-op. It's definitely the shortest round, and I hated myself the least after this one than after the others. Whoa, we play as a team here, bro. Amateur. But playing online has its fair share of problems too, not the least of which is having no way to contact your partner. There's no voice chat or emoji system or anything, so it's pretty much party chat or bust, at least on PS3. You could always use Skype or Discord or whatever if you're playing with a buddy, but I don't recommend subjecting your friends to this. And although I had no interruptions in terms of lag, mostly, there were a few times it got shaky. Whoa, was that Sanic? Or maybe Shadow's edgy girlfriend? The world may never know. You'll notice that every so often there's a challenge that pops up on screen. Most of them are either to get a certain number of headshot kills or kill a few marked enemies or something like that. But the biggest problem with these challenges are that they give you so little time to actually do them. It would work in a co-op setting, I guess, but the aforementioned communication issues should illustrate why that doesn't really excuse it, especially if you don't even notice the challenge is happening, since it's pretty easy to miss. The challenge I've seen most frequently is that there is a criminal around, which is basically a beefed up enemy with a health bar that you have to take down. Once you take them out, you can either kill them with a headshot or hang around to arrest them. I don't mind these missions so much because there's no time limit or anything, you just have to take them out, although sometimes it definitely is a problem. More on that later. Anyway, we finished the round and I ended up losing the little bet from the beginning. Not that it mattered. You okay? Is that like a victory dance or something? Anyway, after trying to find another partner, I ended up just going into a custom match and playing solo. And I had a bad time. I also decided to pick the middle difficulty for curiosity's sake. This is also the match I tried to use the pistol, and I quickly learned the error of my ways. I suppose this run is as good as any to explain the power-up tree on top. Each power-up is in its own tier, and costs a unique amount of the meter to use. The first one is worth 1/5 of the meter, the second is worth 2/5, and so on. First power-up is a support skill, opening up a healing ring around you that regenerates your health faster. The second one sends out chains that restrain nearby enemies. The third lets you plant a mini turret in front of you to help shoot down enemies. The fourth sends out a decoy to distract enemies and turns you invisible for a short bit. And the final power-up is a wave that clears the screen by sending spikes from the ground into your enemies. What any of these have to do with RIPD the movie, I have no idea. And I hope you can tell what these do just from the icons on top, because it doesn't actually tell you what these things do until after you use them. You'd assume they'd at least tell you when you first get the meter up to that point, but no, can't be too smart with design for a game as poorly executed as this, now can we? So I'm running through the match, killing deados, when all of a sudden I see a notification that says a criminal has appeared. Naturally, I figure I ought to go after him first, which leads me into my issue from before. They have too much health. Oh, and this guy just happened to be on fire! I didn't even know they could even get set on fire. The fire is overpowered. He kept setting me on fire from like 15 feet away, and it does so much damage to you. I eventually resorted to just running, shooting him a bit from afar, running and dodging away to regen, and repeating. I was pretty much only whittling down his health with chip damage, and I ended up getting overwhelmed by regular enemies. What?!
How could this happen to me?
Seriously, what timer? Wait a minute, you mean that? You mean my lives are on a timer? Why? What's so wrong with a regular life counter? You need to slap some dumb gimmick over it so people don't get too far ahead? I get that you get more lives as you finish each round, but still, this doesn't make any sense. Just another bullshit way to make people regret playing this stupid game. After this, I pretty much gave up on caring, so I set the difficulty to max and ran with it. At first, I kept getting killed repeatedly until I figured out the ultimate strategy. You wanna know what it is? I just kept running back and forth between one ammo box, killing a few enemies over there, running back to the other ammo box, taking out a few enemies over there, and just going back and forth with no real penalty. The timer ate away, but since I kept running back and forth, the enemies were congregating in those areas, so when I ran to the other one, I was pretty much free to let myself heal. Not to mention that you're pretty much invincible when you dodge roll anyway. Flawless. I also have to bring up the problem with the melee combat. Essentially, it's unreliably inconsistent. Sometimes I'll smack an enemy 4 or 5 times and nothing will happen, but other times, it's the strongest attack in the game, taking down groups of enemies in 1 or 2 hits each. At one point, I got overwhelmed by enemies in the corner, so I just kinda threw down a healing circle and spammed the melee button until they were all dead. And that actually ended up being one of the strongest techniques I found. This match had become so monotonous that I just ended up getting bored and letting the enemies kill me because I didn't want to keep playing. If your game ends up feeling like a form of torture, then you know something is seriously wrong. This game is awful. Truly, seriously awful. Who would make a game like this? What else could this developer have possibly made? Oh, it all makes sense now. A few months before RIP the Game came out, Old School Games released a game called God Mode. It was a Greek god themed wave-based third-person shoot. This game is just a lazy reskin of God Mode! And the worst part is that God Mode is a better game, with more variation in the gameplay, better map design, more weapons, and a better overall aesthetic. And that wasn't even a good game either.
This game is just a lazy cash-in on the ripped movie's time in the spotlight, just so the devs can make a quick buck. Honestly despicable. Now, I'm gonna do something that I should have done a long time ago.
Ah, sweet relief. Let's hope I never have to re-download that mess.
Tough day.
Hey there, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, why don't you leave a like, maybe leave a comment, and if you really liked it and want to see more, you can, hit that subscribe button and I'll be getting more to you very soon. I'll leave some suggestions right here on the screen. On the left will be my first review, which was my first video, which is Crazy Frog Arcade Racer. Very bad kart racer from my childhood. And on the right, I will leave a quick look type video. The last one I did, which is the only one I did so far, is Downwell, which is a very fun little indie game, so why don't you go check those out, leave a like, comment, and maybe subscribe. Alright, I'll see you all next time.